Hi everybody, Tom here. Just a very quick live. It's just me on my own here, so forgive me if the tech isn't perfect. Kind of astonishing news today coming in early this morning. We actually kind of were knowing about it yesterday evening. Some people were starting to talk about it. Some sources were telling me that Meghan Markle's father, Thomas Markle, has had his leg amputated in a horrific medical emergency in the Philippines, where he moved to be able to afford the cost of living, basically, and to get away from the sort of wall-to-wall coverage of Meghan. So he's 81. He's, of course, had a heart attack before Meghan's wedding, which meant that he couldn't come to the wedding. He had a stroke 2 years ago. He had to have speech therapy after that to learn to speak again. He's a very simple man. He's a humble man. He was successful in his career. He was a lighting director in Hollywood. He is being cared for by his son, Thomas Markle Jr., who is probably best described as a loose cannon. If you've seen his YouTube channel, you'll know he can go on some pretty unhinged rants. Thomas Jr. is with him. I wasn't really willing just to accept Thomas Jr.'s account of what had happened to Meghan's father. And I have now confirmed from other sources that this is accurate, that he has had, that Thomas Markle Sr. has had his leg amputated below the knee. I'm told that he perhaps himself doesn't even know that this has happened yet. I'm really interested in this story. Obviously, on a human level, it's a terrible tragedy that Meghan has so fallen out with her father that, you know, they can't speak or what have you. But I'm also really interested in it in terms of the brand and the signaling and what it means for Meghan's brand. I think there's no way of sugarcoating this. The return of the feud with her father, and she cut him off in 2018 after he collaborated with a paparazzi called Jeff Rayner, who was actually known to Meghan. And there have always been rumors that Meghan was perhaps more involved in the whole story than has sometimes been acknowledged. He was exposed for setting up paparazzi pictures. Well, now I have to tell you, anyone who's worked in the newspaper industry knows that a lot of paparazzi pictures are set up. They're fairly easy to spot because they're the ones that are in focus. So, you know, it's even more normal on the West Coast of America. And I think that someone who'd worked in showbiz as a lighting director wouldn't have been particularly shocked to be asked to collaborate on setting up some photographs. And they weren't sort of harmful. They showed him kind of lifting weights or getting measured for a suit or reading a book about English etiquette. I mean, they were dumb and they were cheesy. But then with the whole fallout from that, he then had a heart attack, missed the wedding. Charles had to walk Meghan down the aisle. Meghan then wrote him a long letter, which was the subject of a Daily Mail court action. The Daily Mail published excerpts of the letter. The Daily Mail argued that Meghan had always intended it to be published. Meghan denied that, and Meghan won on a summary judgment, which meant it never went to court. That doesn't alter the fact that they are understood not to have spoken since after the wedding. That was, I am told, the last time that they spoke. Both sides say they've tried to contact the other. Both sides say they've been ignored. My point really is that this is a really serious blow to Meghan's brand, especially with the new holiday edition of her Netflix show with Love Meghan, which came out yesterday, the day before. So it's hardly ideal buzz to be not communicating or not sending even modest best wishes to your father who's just had his leg cut off in a hospital in the Philippines. And they are not communicating. Meghan's side have always been cautious in what they will say and won't say about Thomas. They believe that they've been hoaxed by Thomas before. They believe that the way that he has taken money for tabloid interviews, the way that he took money for those staged pictures, disqualify him from ever re-entering the circle of trust. That may be true. That may or may not be true. I don't know for a fact exactly what Thomas has done or what he hasn't done, or what he's promised or what he's not promised, or what he's gone back in. What I do know without doubt is that her abandonment of Thomas Markle, and I was told this morning, I asked her people, would they be making a comment? The answer came back, no. What interests me, I suppose, is not so much the mushy human story. And I know if you saw Paula on yesterday, Paula was talking about how she feels very strongly about the human side of this, and the fact that he raised her, he paid for her to go to college, he got her the jobs and those kinds of things. I totally accept all that, and I'm not diffusing that. But what I want to talk about today in this little live that I'm just doing, it's going to be a pretty short one, is how this abandonment of Thomas Markle is rapidly metastasizing into a complete disaster for her global brand, which rests, need I remind you, on the virtues of warmth, family, and compassion. So just as the Duchess of Sussex is there on her Netflix special, urging viewers to craft sentimental ornaments, to get into their crafting barn and make advent calendars for their children, to, going on and on about the wondrous succor that could be provided by friends and family, her father is literally lying in an intensive care unit in the Philippines after a 3-hour emergency operation to remove his foot and lower leg. And, not only is she not contacting him, they're effectively sort of seeming to cast doubt on whether there is actually a serious medical emergency taking place at all. And of course, that is part of the problem, right? When you're not in contact with somebody, is that it's very hard to know, right, the detail of what is going on. The silence from Meghan and from her side, to put it mildly, is not helping her reputation. The silence, I understand that silence and not speaking to toxic family members is a completely legitimate survival instinct for people in very difficult family situations. And I'm sure many people watching this have family members that they cannot speak to because it's too bad for their mental health, or it's too dangerous for them, or it's too whatever you. And I absolutely understand that in the private sphere. My point is that if you are marketing your brand as one of family strength, of a successful family, of compassion, and if you're constantly seem to be seeking forgiveness and compassion and reconciliation from your husband's family, who you've actually called racists on television to millions and millions and millions of people, who you've made stunning allegations about in very, very public forums with far greater impact than whatever Thomas Markle may or may not have done. Silence in that case really doesn't suit you. Its silence does not work for a business model that revolves around being compassionate. So Thomas Markle Jr., who rushed his father to local hospital, told the Daily Mail, "My dad is being very brave. His foot turned blue and then black. It happened very quickly. I took him to a local hospital and they did some scans and an ultrasound and said the leg had to be amputated." I note that the Mail also did confirm this with the doctors who confirmed that this is what happened. As I said, I have spoken to sources who have also confirmed that this is what happened. Again, to quote Tom Jr., there was no option. I was told the leg had to be removed, and it was a case of life or death. And we're then told the limb was removed below the knee. And very, very interestingly, again, obviously, my compassion and my thoughts and my best wishes go to any individual who's in surgery, especially Thomas Markle and his family. But from a slightly colder, more disinterested brand side of this, and the branding of what it means for Meghan, what it means for her reputation, what they're saying that the next 24 to 72 hours are critical, and that there's infection in the wound. He's 81. He's already had massive strokes, heart attacks. What happens when he dies? And I think this is such an interesting question, because the royal family never shy away from it, right? They don't talk about it publicly, but we know exactly, everybody in King Charles's life knows exactly where they are going to be on the entire 10 days following the death of the king. They know who's coming to the funeral, and they know where they're sitting. And we know Harry's going, and that has been revealed already. So there's an understanding, right, that death and taxes are inevitable, and as sad as it may be, let's not get too distracted by the emotion or the sentiment, and let's figure out how we are going to handle this moment in the public eye, in the glare of the cameras, in the glare of the TV cameras. And it seems to me that Meghan's strategy seems to be, well, he's dead to me, and I'm not going to speak to him. I'm not going to send any cards. I'm not going to do anything. And I do not think that that is remotely sustainable. Look, Thomas Markle has conceded in interviews in his past that he was foolish, that he was vain, that he wanted to look better, that he was thoughtless. I suspect Meghan thinks much worse of him than that. And some of his interviews that I have seen over the years have been very, very harsh and very, very cruel, I would say, towards his daughter. No doubt fueled by his own anger and rejection and unhappiness, and takes two to tango. None of that changes the fact that a refusal to forgive a seriously ill person who raised you, who raised you single-handedly from the age of 11 to 18, who drove her to auditions, who bankrolled her private schooling. Yeah, sure. Okay, he staged some paparazzi pictures. He lied to her about it. He did interviews. He collapsed. He missed her wedding. But ultimately, if you are marketing yourself as the embodiment of compassion, and you are preaching compassion, it's completely not sustainable. And yeah, sure, Thomas Markle Jr., sure, he spent years monetizing his sister's notoriety. He's got a YouTube channel now, which he openly says in it, is about making some money. And he pretty vile things he's saying about Meghan that I won't repeat, because he's inciting violence against her, which I think is completely unacceptable and frankly undermines his own case. But again, fundamentally, begging somebody to speak to their father and allow that person to meet their grandchildren before they die is a very, very hard position to set your face against if your business revolves around being the self-anointed queen of compassion. So I think it's very hard now to see how they are going to reconcile these two things. And my own view is that if I was being hired as the crisis PR for this situation, right, it's not a very difficult fix, is it? We all know what it is. You send $20,000 to cover the medical fees. You send a card saying, get well soon, sorry to hear what's happened, with a photo of the kids. You organize a Zoom call, and that's pretty well it. You don't have to invite him to come and live with you. He doesn't have to come and stay at your house. If you genuinely believe he cannot be trusted, you keep him away from your children. That's I don't think anyone would particularly object to that. But you just have to look like the bigger person. Just just saying nothing, saying absolutely nothing, is a horrible, horrible strategy. And interesting, it was the strategy they used in the run up to the royal wedding. They just said nothing for days and days and days. And preaching about honoring family stories on your glossy Netflix stage while not picking up the phone to speak to your father is a disconnect that is completely unsustainable if your commercial value is rooted in sincerity. It's completely unsustainable. I'm sure that were they Sussex side to articulate their argument, they would say, that boundaries can be healthy. They would say that forgiveness does not always require contact, right? There's not always an amends to be made in connection with your own forgiveness of somebody. Forgiveness is often can be couched as an inside job. They could say that he's proven himself so untrustworthy over the years, it would be foolish and unwise of them to allow him back into any form of circle of trust. And I'm sure all those things can be valid. But the real reality of this is that Meghan is in a very vulnerable position. The TV career is not going well. The PR campaign is not going well. And global audiences, I don't think, are particularly invested in weighing up the fine points of sort of your trauma-informed boundaries. I just don't think they are. They're just seeing a sick old man who's had his leg chopped off and wants to meet his grandchildren before he dies. And we're not even seeing the most minimal gesture of kindness or forgiveness from Meghan. There's Harry joking around with Stephen Colbert on TV, giving his lectures to real estate agents in Canada, telling them they've got to be authentic and they've got to be this. And, I'm not saying they have to forget every site. They don't have to forget everything that he's done. But this isn't really about what Thomas Markle deserves or doesn't deserve. This is about what you, as the self-anointed face of modern empathy, ought to do. And it's about what your public image and your business can tolerate you not doing. I think that I think it would be very easy. I think it's a very easy fix. It's a card in the post, it's a contribution towards medical bills, and it's a Zoom call. I don't understand why they just cannot do it. Now, I'm going to have a look at some of your comments here. Thank you so much. I'm astonished to see that so many of you wonderful people have come. Let's have a look at this. Thomas says his oldest son is his only caregiver. It's hard being a sole caregiver, I know, because I've been one at an even younger age than her brother. So I wanted to highlight this because I just wanted to say, look, it's Thanksgiving and Christmas, and carers have an unbelievably difficult job. I do not know how you are able to do it. PDT 0328 and all those millions of other people around the world who look after seriously ill relatives. Thank you so much to all of those people who do that. You are incredible, incredible people. Let's just have a look at some of the other comments that are coming in. There's a lot of comments coming in. Okay, so this I think is a really interesting point by DJ Intuition. Are you a DJ Intuition? Who knows? Her massive ego and vindictiveness stopped this humanitarian of the year from being the bigger person. She's so exhausted from years of performing compassion that she has compassion fatigue. So I think this is a very interesting comment because, as we know, earlier this year, they accepted this award of humanitarian of the year. And, I said at the time, I thought it was ridiculous. Like, clearly they're not the humanitarian. Clearly they're not the humanitarians of the year. But there's an old expression, isn't there? Charity starts at home. So I think we need to see a bit of that attitude from Meghan, and I don't think it's too late. MS Wendy Stephen, yeah, like, I mean, it's not a, maybe you're too kind to me. It may not be perfect, but it's not a bad solution, is it? I mean, if she sent a few bucks and did that, I mean, I'm sure she'd be criticized and people would say, oh, she's just doing it for show, or this, that, or the other. But at least it would be something. At least it would be something. Now, there's something else that I wanted to highlight. Sorry, forgive me. Okay. So this, I think, is an important point that somebody, Sostum, has made. And I do understand that people have really difficult and toxic relationships with their families and their former friends who we fall out with, and it can be incredibly painful, and they can be so harmful towards us that we feel there is no other solution than not to communicate with them. My point is, I suppose, and I completely hear what you are saying, Zoom. I do hear what you're saying, that it's nobody's business what Meghan does in regards to her horrible father. He certainly, Thomas Markle Sr. has certainly been accused of many things, and I think that some of them he has behaved very badly. Some of the interviews he's given about Meghan have been, and there is no other word for it, cruel and mean and nasty. And of course, you can always say, well, he was provoked into it, or this or that or the other, or that he was a humble, vulnerable man who got confused or got talked into it, or what have you. And I totally, like, all of those things. My point is that Meghan has made it everyone else's business how she treats her horrible father, to use your words, because she is marketing herself as the emblem of compassion. That's really my point. But I do totally take your point that, and I do take on board this point that people are entitled not to necessarily have close relationships with members of their family who they can consider harmful. And then this is one other thing I want to say. All these nasty comments about the Markles, whether you like them or not, please remember there is an elderly man in critical condition. It's not about who you like and dislike. And of course, yes, that is the absolute thing that we mustn't forget. At the core of this, there's a person in a very severe medical condition in a foreign hospital, no doubt feeling very lost and very lonely and very confused. And I think that it is important to remember that there is a human being at the heart of all this, but at the same time, there is also a global brand at the heart of all this that is not benefiting particularly from what is going on. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming. I really have been blown away. As I always say, the deal's really simple. If you subscribe and you like and you keep watching the videos and keep sharing it and get it out to other people, I can keep doing this for free. Thank you so much for being with us. Just a very quick one today. Oh, longer than I thought. Goodness me, 24 minutes. Well, look, thanks very much for giving up your valuable time. It's a really wonderful community we are building here. And no doubt if I had my producer, he'd be putting all the things on the screen going, like, subscribe, do this, do the other. It's quite nice not having them, isn't it? Quite nice not having any pictures. So look, there we go. Thanks a million, guys. Goodbye. I'll try that again. Thanks a million. Thanks a million, guys. Goodbye.